I'd like to welcome all of you. Thank you for coming. I'm happy to see so many students here, obviously interested in social and labor law. There could be only one reason, and that is we have such an excellent education and research here in social and labor law. No, it's great to have you all here, and we are, of course, most happy to welcome both our Chinese colleagues today. Mankui Li, who is going to give us a lecture. He is with us, as most of you probably know, for the last week already and this week, and is teaching a class on labor law issues. We are very grateful in general for the cooperation we have with Southwest University of Political Science and Law, and please extend our best wishes to Swapul once you are back. And we are, of course, also very grateful for the teachers' exchange in which two of our staff members had been in Chongqing in December, and now we have both of you here, and we're happy to have you here indeed. This is a wonderful cooperation over such a long distance. Even though the world is becoming smaller, it still is a long way. Thanks for coming. We are going to hear a presentation on the issue of China's social protection system through the lens of gender. This is challenging, I would say, and I'm very much interested in listening to what you will tell us, and then we, of course, have also some time for discussion. But first of all, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you, Professor TJ, for the kind words, and thank you all for coming. It is my true pleasure and honor to give this presentation at your Law After Lunch series. You know, in December, when Yugen told me, invite me over the presentation during lunchtime, I said, sure. You know, I do this lunch speech occasionally in the States, in Canada. So, for the lunch speech is good. I have time. I have a chance to talk. You have a chance to have free lunch. I saw, it's like luncheon. Well, finally I figured out it's law after lunch. So I apologize first for not being able to bring you free lunch. Okay, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about the social protection system in China. Well, we know social protection now is a very heated topic, very current, now both globally and in China. So today I will take a little bit of time to talk about social protection. What is social protection, and what is the Chinese efforts in putting in place a social protection floor? Then we will use more time to talk about the gender issue, to discuss about what is the repercussions of this development, the social protection floor for women. Well, can women enjoy the equal access to social protection or not in China? So the first, just as a kind of like a backgrounder, is about social protection. So what is social protection? So for the purpose of definition, I mean, it's a little bit weak, right? So when you say, or ambiguous, when you say social protection, what is social protection? Because any protection offered by law is social, right? So we need a kind of like a definition on the social protection. Actually, this social protection concept is recently promoted by ILO, International Labour Organization, as one of its 4 strategic pillars under the decent work agenda. ILO is all about decent work agenda. Under this decent work agenda, there are 4 strategic pillars: employment creation, rights at work, social protection, social dialogue. So that's the sense in which I'm using the social protection. So in the ILO sense, one of the strategic pillar of this decent work agenda. So according to ILO, this social protection includes 2 parts. Mainly the first part is labor protection, and the other part is social security. Though I'm aware that in many countries, social protection is used, interchangeably with social security. Well, today, in my presentation, I will use social protection in the sense of both including social security and labor protection. Well, when in the ILO's vision, about, when promoting social protection, they are now trying to promote the social protection across a life cycle. So they try to persuade different countries or its constituents to provide this social protection to everyone at every age group. You have to provide social protection, like income security for children before they come into the working age group. That's what the child benefits about, right? You have to, for example, give the family some kind of cash transfer to help the family take care of the children. Or you should have some kind of a public daycare center to help the family to cope with the child care issue, right? Or others about nutrition enhancement for the school students. This is about social protection for children before they reach the age of working age. The second group, most important group, is the working age population. Upon you reach the working age before you reach the age of retirement. So for this age group, we should also give them social protection. And frankly speaking, that's the main target nowadays globally for the social protection. The social protection in many countries, they are now mainly for workers, for the working age population. Though I know in some European countries, when the social welfare model is like a social democratic, right? They try to promote kind of universal coverage for the for the citizen. But in many countries, the working age population is the main target of this social protection system. Then the third group is for the elderly and for the marginal group. For people who reach the age of retirement, they are no longer work, but they need something to live on, right? So we need to give them some social protection. So this provides us with a new perspective to examine whether a country's social protection is good or not, or whether there is kind of lack of social protection. So I will also mention a little bit later about China. If we examine China's social protection system through this kind of life cycle approach. Now, ILO is now promoting kind of extension of this social security, both including horizontal extension, thus mainly extend this coverage of social security or social protection to everyone, try to extend to everyone. This is about horizontal extension. Another one is about a vertical extension to improve the level of benefits. So that's the two dimension ILO now is advocating for the extension of social protection, both horizontally and vertically. By horizontally extending the coverage of social protection to everyone, they are now forming kind of we call it social protection floor. The floor I'm here on, this is the floor. So this represents kind of a shift from the original concept in China and in many other countries. The original concept is safety net. So when we say a safety net, there are meshes, right? People can still fall through the mesh. But when we now promoting the concept of the social protection floor, everyone is on floor. Everyone at least have some minimum, income security or material assistance to count on. So this is a very important concept. The UN system, they have a lot of specialized agencies. Right after the 2008 financial crisis, they come up with a lot of initiatives to cope with the repercussions of the financial crisis, to help the constituents, the member countries, to get out of this crisis. One of their initiatives is Social Protection Floor Initiative, SPF, Social Protection Floor Initiative. It now try to encourage its constituents, the member states, to establish kind of social protection floor for everyone. In order, this social protection floor concept is very important. Everyone have something to live on. This can provide, a boost to the domestic consumption, right? People have money, they can spend. And this will also be a kind of a social and economic stabilizer. So this is seen as a fairly effective way to cope with this financial crisis. And the ILO further, enshrined this concept or initiative in a recommendation. That's recommendation 202, recommendation on social protection floors, which was passed in 2012. It set out like a lot of principles. If I recall correctly, 18 principles, to help the countries to establish their own national social protection floors. So this is the backgrounder about the social protection floor concept or social protection floor initiative. And now let's dig a little bit into the social protection system in China. Well, with regard to the social protection system in China, if you take a historical overview, China will be a fantastic place to see the different types of this social protection system. Because in the past 50 or past 60 years, China just went through 3 totally different types of social protection in just 60 years time. So at the beginning, the founding of People's Republic, they face in kind of like, a former Soviet Union type of, the social protection system. It's more like, the universal one. Universal, at least for the urban residents, right? They have, the benefit of free education, free Medicare, free housing, a lot of benefits associated. I mean, most of you know that, the concept of household registration system. So that's the reason why I say mainly for the urban residents, that's relatively universal. But after 1978, after the opening up reform, I mean, the government, the top decision maker realized that, the past model, the social welfare model, combined, in accordance with the command economy, is unsustainable. So they come up with this open up and reform that's mainly market-oriented reform, right? So for a fairly long time, like a couple of decades, in order to push forward this market-oriented reform, the social protection system was privatized. So for like a couple of decades, for some 20 years, people in China, they have to pay for education, even for basic education, for elementary school. So I remember clearly when I was in the school age, my parents have to pay for this tuition fee. I mean, for some families, if they cannot afford it, they will have difficulty in getting admitted to the schools, even the elementary school, which is regarded, part of the basic education. They have to pay, the medical care, which, sometimes the medical expense is pretty high, and it will drag the family back into poverty. And they have to pay, the housing or like in the rent that's operated based on the principal market. So that's caused a lot of problem. Then, in the middle of 1990s, China began to refacing this social protection mechanism, including the unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, old age pension, and the medical insurance, and also the maternity insurance. So these 5 types of social insurance was gradually phased in the middle or late 1990s. So at that time, these social insurance programs is operated by the government, is social insurance. So it's mainly for workers. So you can see at that time, it's a little bit like, based on the social welfare model. It's more like the conservative model. So it's mainly for the workers. It's social insurance program mainly for the workers. Now, after entering into the new millennia, after we enter into 2000 years, the Chinese government is now trying to do, what they're doing is try to extend the coverage to other nationals, those nationals who has no employment relationship. So we create residents, non-worker residents. So they now, for example, they extend the old age pension to the non-working residents. So now for the residents who have no employment relationship, who are not workers, they now have some kind of like a old age pension coverage. They are now extend the medical insurance to the urban residents, to the rural residents. So now for the urban rural residents who are not workers, they now have some access to the basic medical insurance. So it's fair to say, I mean, till 2012, China has formed two kind of floors. The first is basic pension floor. So everyone in China now have some kind of like a pension benefits after they reach the age of retirement or the age of pension age. So we have this kind of like basic pension floor after 2012. That's 1 year before last year. And we also have, as I have said, have this kind of like a basic medical floor. Now medical insurance are extending to the non-working residents, though based on different rules, different principles. So at least everyone now in China have this kind of like a basic or minimum medical insurance coverage. So this is another floor, basic medical floor. So you can see the concept of social protection floor is now ring a bell in China. And Chinese efforts in facing in these social protection floors, when a lot of applause and praise from like international community. Here is one of the comments from the ILO and WHO-led social protection floor advisory group. So China's efforts in extending the medical insurance coverage and the old age pension coverage to the citizens is the single fastest and the largest social inclusion movement ever in human history. So this is pretty high. This is pretty high comment. So you can see, even now today, if you go to China to ask about, the citizens about this, social security system, my personal experience, most of them will give some up. So they now get some, can at least some kind of like a social security benefits for the citizens at the time of 2012, if they are older than 60 years old. So they do not have to contribute a penny. They are going to get some pension benefits each month. So that's the way it works. But for those who haven't reached the pension age, they have to contribute in order to claim this pension after the pension age. Here is some features. Here are some features of China's social protection floor. The first, that through my introduction, you'll find that if we examine it from the life cycle approach, in China there is lack of child benefits. We do not have much child benefit. If you count, in China now, in recent years, the government is trying to provide, free lunch to the rural high school students. So this is called like a nutrition enhancement program. So if you even count this as a child benefit, other than that, we do not have any. Other than this, we do not have any child benefit. We do not have cash benefits or cash transfer from the government to help us cope with the burden of raising a child. In China, believe it or not, we do not have public daycare facilities. We do not have public daycare facilities. This is going to have some repercussions about the social protection or women's equal access to social protection, which I will discuss later. This is the first feature, lack of child benefits. The second feature is, these social protection systems, though, form some kind of flow, but it's very segmented. So there are different programs for a different group of people. For workers, they have one, and the level of benefits is higher. And for the non-working residents, there is one. Actually, one for rural residents, one for urban residents. So you can see, there is a floor, but above the floor, different groups will be fit in different programs. So that's we call it segmenting nature. So largely this, which program are you in, or what kind of like benefits will you be enjoying is dependent on your employment status. So if you are in an employment status, in an employment relationship, so you will be covered by this, a relatively higher social security program for the workers. If not, you will be covered by the social security system for the non-working residents. So that's the two features. Please bear in mind when we examine the women's access to the social protection. Now let's move to the third and the key part of my presentation about women's access to the social protection. So the first is about the general introduction about the women's status. As you may know that in China and in other socialist countries influenced by former Soviet Union, so they promote proactively the concept of women liberation or women emancipation. So what their idea is to encourage the women to come out to work as male, to engage in this productive labor, right? Well, to relieve them from household duties, household burden. So there is a famous statement or remark by the Frederick Engels in his masterpiece, The Origin of Family, Private Property, State, right? In this book, he discussed about enabling of economic independence of women through employment made possible by assuming or assumption of household by society. So first, his idea is that encourage women to engage in this productive labor, to earn money, right? To be economic independence. On the other hand, the household duty will be assumed by the society, not by the women themselves. This is the ideal one. Unfortunately, the first part become true in China. Now the second part is never become a live reality. So you can see now women, especially in the urban areas, they are working at the same as their male counterpart to earn money, to earn a living, but without the family or the household duty assumed by the society, they still have to do a larger share of household duty. So this just to put women in a double jeopardy or in a double burden. This actually to overburdens females in China. I mean, in some other countries, in many Western countries, I know this is relatively applicable to this country, but in China, extent is more severe. So this is the first one. The second one is now in China, we have this policy statement of gender equality. So gender equality, there is no problem. This is the principle, in many different laws. So at least now when there is kind of like a legislation, so there will be gender equality principle. So women will not be, at least in the law or in the legislation, be discriminated. That's no longer true. So that's something to be sure. The third one is in China, part of the reason because it is socialist history. So it promotes the concept of substantive equality approach in terms of gender issue. So they will examine, because women are disadvantaged, so we need to provide them with some protection or with some actual protection in the name of substantive equality. So in China, substantive equality is something we take it for granted. We take it for granted. Since women are disadvantaged due to a lot of factors, right? So we need to give them actual protection in order to realize gender equality. Here are some of these gender differences. It can be in terms of reproductive health, it can be pregnancy, it can be maternity, it can be breastfeeding. So China's labor employment law, including the social protection law, they largely based on the different treatment of men and women, or male workers, female workers, based on these different gender differences. For example, with regard to the reproductive health, the law provided this prohibited scope of employment for women. So the law have a list of prohibited employment. So for these type of jobs, for example, the jobs which have exposure to the chemical hazards. So they are not allowed to, women are not allowed to work on it for the purpose of protect their reproductive health. So this one example is for every women workers. So the second one is like a pregnancy. So that's different. Unfortunately, only women can bear a child. Unfortunately, we would like to share the burden, but we cannot, right? So the law also designs certain kind of like labor protection for pregnant women, including some more prohibited employment. So for women in the pregnancy period, some more employment are prohibited for them. And for women, pregnant women in the third trimester, so they are not allowed to work overtime or to work on the night shifts. So these are the additional protection. The third one, like for maternity, again, unfortunately, only women can do this job, right? So the law provide protection like maternity leave, up to 14 weeks. In China, that's a new law. Previously, the year before 2012, that's 90 days. So now they have increased to 98 days. And for the breastfeeding, the law in China provide kind of like a breastfeeding leave. These are two types of breastfeeding leave. The first type, for the if you are breastfeeding a child within younger than 1 year, right, an infant. In this case, each day the employer will have a duty of accommodation. They have to accommodate, arrange 2 times, each time half hour for breastfeeding the baby, right? This is the one breastfeeding leave. The second one is if the female workers, the breastfeeding female workers, have difficulty in balancing the work and take care of their child, they can apply to their employer for 6 months. The length of this leave depending on the jurisdiction. Up to 6 months, the breastfeeding leave. That means they will take this leave to take care of their child or their children. So this breastfeeding leave is only in China, only available to the women workers. So now we go over this special protection. So we can, critically examine it, whether these protections are really justified or not. For example, the first one, for the prohibited scope of employment for women, the justification is to protect their reproductive health. However, everyone knows not only women's reproductive health needs to be protected, men's reproductive health needs to be protected, right? So for this one, to me, this makes no sense. If some jobs are unhealthy for women to do, it should be the same unhealthy for men to do so, right? The only thing the country do is to improve the safe and health workplace, make it both safe and health for men and women. That's the only solution. Not you provide this is not allowed to work for women, will allow work for men. So this is the first one. The second one, with regard to the special labor protection for the pregnant women, for me there is no problem. That's the kind of the difference needs between men and women needs such kind of a special treatment. I will talk later about how to. They need some kind of they might need some kind of special protection, but how to give this protection? There is different ways of delivery. So we will talk about it later. For the maternity leave, yes, that's the practice everywhere, right? So this maternity leave, 14-week maternity leave, is given to the women in order for them to recover from maternity, right? Not for them to take care of the child. not for them to take care of the child. Well, for the breastfeeding leave, that's something problematic. As I have said, in China, for the breastfeeding leave, only female workers can apply for this breastfeeding leave. I mean, this is very bad. To me, this is very disturbing. It is just reinforce the stereotyping that women is the one who take care of the child, right? And this can reflect of the traditional male single breadwinner model. So this is a little bit like the paternal leave in your country or in many other countries, but in China only available to women workers. That's something really disturbing. So this is a critical evaluation of the special labor protection for the women workers. Now I will go through another example about this, different treatment, about differentiating mandatory retirement age. In China, we have the mandatory retirement system. Well, whether it's justified or not, that's a different question. We can discuss about it later. But we just have this mandatory retirement system. And with regard to the mandatory retirement age, men and women have different mandatory retirement age. For men, that's 60. For women, depending on the job you are in, whether you are in a managerial role or not. If you are in a managerial role, or to put it another way, like a white collar workers, that's 55. For the manual labor, for blue collar workers, that's 50. So you can see this differentiating retirement age for men and women. So in China, the reason why we have this differentiating mandatory retirement age is designed or was designed to protect women, because by recognizing that women has a double role, both the worker and child rearer, right? So allow them to retire 5 or even 10 years earlier is kind of like a protection for them, so that they can focus on this household duty. That's the original thought about this, differentiating retirement age. Well, nowadays, if many people criticize it as, this is outrageous, this discrimination, right? This discrimination both against men and also against women, right? Because sometimes women want to work till 60, they are not. So there are many, Westerners, especially the Western commentators, when they came to China, when they know there is differentiating retirement age, they just criticize it. You should change it. You should level the playground. Now, the Chinese government is working toward that goal. They are now trying to level this retirement age. Believe it or not, they are going to try to level it to 65. Try to level it to 65 in some years later. So maybe, when I retire, definitely it will be 65 or even 67. So, the target has said there, but, they need to work out the steps, how to, increase it, like, months or year by year, how to do it in this way. But the problem to me is that, there is kind of like, many people said, the reason why we need to increase or postpone the retirement age is because of like the fiscal soundings. I'm not expert on this, so I won't talk about it. Another very important justification for this, level the retirement age to 65 is about equality. So today we'll talk about from the perspective of gender equality. Are we really realizing this, gender equality by putting this retirement age at 65? Not necessarily. Actually, not necessarily. We have to examine the differentiating retirement age issue. From a big picture. Remember, for sure. For women workers, you mandate them to retire 5 or 10 years earlier. That means they will get less pension benefits. Because in China, the old age pension fund for workers is largely a definite contribution one. Your contribution will determine how much you get. The more you contribute, the more you will get after retirement, right? So for women, they contribute 5 or 10 years less. So that that means they will get less for sure. That's one thing. But from examine from other perspective, remember, there is no in China. There is no child benefit. There is no child benefit. There is no public daycare centers. There is no public daycare facilities. So in China, the predominant way of child care taking is the we call it intergenerational division of labor. Your grandparents take care of your grandchildren. So that's the predominant one. So, for my colleagues, if not 100, at least 95 of them are, doing it this way. Their parents moving in to take care of their child. So that's intergenerational division of labor. So this kind of like, child care taking is mainly a family business. Hasn't been assumed by the society. So examine from this perspective. So if we examine whether like retire 5 or even 10 years earlier, is it a burden? Is it a restrict or is it a benefit? So we should examine it from this way. To me, it's rather a benefit. It's rather a benefit, especially when you think about, for people in their 50s or 55s, think about the labor market condition. They will have great difficulty in finding a new job. So to me, even retiring 5 or 10 years earlier means get less pension benefit. But I will get a pension benefit. I do not have to find a job in the bleak employment market, and I have the chance to take care of my grandchildren. So this is to me, this is a benefit. So when you conclude that early retirement is a benefit, so the way how we reach gender equality will be different, right? If for example, the 55 60, you now raise the 55 to 60. That means for women, their benefits has lost, and for men, their status hasn't changed a bit. So what is sense of equality? So this is mainly depriving people's benefits is the name of equality, right? Well, we have other ways to do it. First put aside the fiscal soundness aside. I'm not going to talk about fiscal soundness of the pension fund. We only talk about equality. So if early retirement is a benefit, the only way we can do that is to extend this benefit to the other group of people. So if we look globally, in South Africa, they have the same kind of issue several years ago. Different retirement age, women at 55, men at 60. So the way they reach gender equality is to make a legislation to make the men or male workers in the age group of 55 to 60, they can choose retire early. So this is another way around. So not necessary to to raise women's retirement age to the same age as men. So if we think early retirement is a benefit. So this is my critical evaluation of the second specific case, the differentiating mandatory retirement age. Now, here comes to my conclusion. The first is that from the whole perspective of this social protection system, as I have said, due to its segmented nature, which kind of program are you covered, or which kind of level of benefits are you eligible to? Well, pretty much depending on the employment status. So this feature actually put women into a disadvantage. Think about, globally, women are, the larger share or larger proportion of women work in the informal sector. That's true in China. Many people are self-employed, and in China, many women workers work as a domestic worker. In China, domestic helper, is largely excluded from the labor employment law. So they are worker, but they are not covered by this labor and employment law. So they cannot have access to the social security benefits for workers, the higher social security benefits for workers. So this segmented nature actually hurts women, because women a large proportion of women working in the informal sector. This is the conclusion number one. The second is that the lack of child benefits will have repercussions on the other age group, especially the seniors, the elder ones. That's something we should examine, especially when we reform this retirement age issue. That's not about the superficial or formal equality issue. We should think about a big picture. The lack of child benefits is going to produce some repercussions for the social protection for the elder people. The third one is about the approach the Chinese are using. The Chinese legislation are using in providing this protection. So the way they're using it is like we create a paternalist approach. Remember, I talked about the special labor protection for women in the pregnancy period, or for women in breastfeeding period. We think they need special protection, so we give this special protection, which is mandated. You cannot choose it. This is good for you, so accept it. This is good for you. So this mainly is kind of like a paternalist approach. So there is another issue of delivery. How can we provide this protection to the female workers? Yes, they might need it. So, in the future about this, social protection, especially special protection for women, if we need, we may doing it in an empowering way, to give women the choice, to let them, the choice are here. You can choose. For example, if you think like the working condition is hazardous to yourself or to your features, right? You can apply for reassignment, and we provide that the employer have the obligation to make accommodation. That this might be another way. But this improve the women's status by empowering them to give them ways of choice. So this is my conclusions of this presentation. And in the interest of time, I would stop here. I know I'm a little bit over schedule, and I would be more than happy to answer any of your questions.